Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I am here with the wonderful James Bartley, and we are going to pick up right where we left off a moment ago. And James is going to continue to let us know a little bit about some of the methods of targeting, a few techniques that they use. When I say they, I mean the reptilians, the greys, the powers that be, in their efforts to control humanity, manipulate humanity. James is an expert in this field, alien abductions, MILABs, you name it. He's researched it, he's studied it, and he is bringing it all to light. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. James, let's pick right up where we left off.
Thank you, Jenny. I really appreciate that. In the previous segment, I was talking about the electromagnetic beaming and how they can create a virtual reality in your mind. It's kind of up in the air sometimes. Sometimes it's clear that we're being put through our paces in our physical body, and sometimes it's a whole nother story. But sometimes they can use clones in some of the physical training too. But there are times when we know we're being put through our paces physically, and we're in a military, paramilitary environment. We're being trained. Sometimes these are real operations, real missions, operational. Real world, whether this one or off world or somewhere else, we know that at some level it's physical, but at some level, sometimes we really can't tell whether what we're going through is an astral experience, a physical experience, or a virtual reality theater of the mind, because we don't have the normal sensate feelings. We can't, in some of these experiences, reach out, touch something, touch a table, touch a desk, and kind of ground ourselves into the reality of it, where we could, in a physical experience, okay, I'm touching this desk, I'm in this office, I'm in an underground base, okay, this is real, right? Sometimes we can't do that when we're being beamed electromagnetically. But it seems as if what we're going through is at times a real physical experience. What they'll do sometimes also is when they beam us and they create the virtual reality environment where we're being put through our paces. And I believe what they do sometimes, Jenny, is in the virtual environment, it could be a building with a lot of corridors, a lot of rooms. It could be an airliner. It could be a school, complete with the outdoor playground and then the interior of a school, like an elementary school, whatever the case may be. And in these virtual environments, they may put us through our paces a number of times in the same layout, in the same building, the same interior. So we become accustomed to it. In a room clearing exercise where we're going from one room to another, making sure there's no hostages or terrorists, in an example, in each room, kind of like the SAS killing house training, room clearing. And they put us through this over and over and over again, so it becomes habitual in these virtual environments. So when the day comes or the night comes, when we're in physical embodiment, or what they can do is they can take a clone of us and all the brain mapped memories, know-how, experience from all the virtual reality, all the physical training, astral operations, et cetera, that can be momentarily downloaded. It's not even really downloaded. They can actually create an alter, not only in a clone body, with consciousness, with a personality, with skill sets, with memories, but they can also do this astrally, actually. That's a whole nother subject where astral operators could have whole skill sets, memories, knowledge, personalities, whatever the case may be. So in our example, we've gone through a lot of this simulated training in a given environment until we memorize it by heart, so to speak. And then they put us back in our physical body, then they run us through our paces in the same real physical layout. Everything is 3D, everything is physical, you can touch it, you can knock on wood, kind of thing. Or conversely, like I said, they can put us into a cloned body, and we've already run through these scenarios over and over in the same virtual environment. So now they turn us loose in our cloned body, running around in a building, in an airport, whatever the simulation, whatever the real physical example is. The benefit to them of putting us in cloned bodies, Jenny, is if we get mangled or our physical bodies, our cloned bodies are even killed, they simply either send us back to our physical body or they transfer our consciousness into another cloned body and continue the training, continue the exercise, continue the mission, whatever the case may be. So the point of relevance here is there could be an intermingling of all three: the physical, the astral, the virtual environment scenario. I've gone through virtual environment scenarios where I was going through a lot of military special ops type training, room clearing, hostage rescues, that kind of thing, with singly or with small groups, room clearing, like you see with the British SAS, Delta Force, that kind of thing. And there was also ops I did. These seem physical, and also the training, where I did a lot of running, endless amounts of running, and also a lot of swimming, lots and lots of swimming on the surface of the water and also underwater. And when I was underwater, I did not have at times a breathing rig. I seemed to be able to comfortably swim long distances underwater. Again, some of them felt really physical, really real. I felt the water and all this other stuff. Other times it could have been a simulation, virtual reality, theater of the mind. There's no way I could really tell. Some of it could have been in a cloned body. I can swim, but I'm not a strong swimmer. I certainly cannot, in my normal waking consciousness, swim the distances I have in some of these ops, okay? Whether they have the ability to switch me into a mode in my physical body where I can do these things, whatever the case may be. We also talked about the beaming, how they target certain parts of the brain, for example, the frontal lobe, to erode it and make us more impulsive, more aggressive. They can also, while we're in this virtual reality state of the mind, and when you're in these scenarios, folks, when you're laying there and you know that it's a virtual reality scenario because you can feel the beaming, you can literally feel the rapid eye movement, the REM, behind your eyelids, you know, your eyes rolling back into the back of your head. You can feel your eyes moving beneath the eyelids. If you manage during this process with a tremendous amount of will and effort to pry your eyes open while you're being beamed, while you're in the midst of the virtual reality scenario, what happens is the movie in your mind, the virtual reality that you're in, will stop abruptly. And then you pry your eyes open, you're back in your bedroom, it's a dark room. What will happen, because of their brain mapping ability, their ability to plug into us remotely, and this could be aliens doing this and or deep black military aerospace. I believe both do this kind of manipulation for whatever reason. What happens is if they realize, oh, Bartley or whoever has pried their eyes open and they've stopped the training exercise, what they will do, and you will feel this, you will feel the part of your brain that induces deep, deep sleep will suddenly start being zapped with energy. They'll be zapping that part of your brain, which induces deep, heavy, eyelids weigh a ton sleep. So what happens is I pried my eyes open, the virtual reality stopped, they know that, and then they intensify the beaming of a different part of the brain. You could feel it, the different part of your brain being zapped, and that induces the deep, deep sleep syndrome. Your eyelids become very heavy, and they close. And the moment they close, whammo, you're back in the virtual environment, exactly where you were. If you're running down a corridor and you've got weapons and you got the butt up against your shoulder and you're setting down and you're doing room clearing, right? Or you cup and saucer with a pistol doing room clearing, you're back right there again. And then say, oh, I'm back here. I don't like being beamed, because sometimes it can be painful, folks. Because, I mean, literally, your eyelids are twitching. Sometimes you can feel parts of your brain twitching beneath the scalp. You feel like your body weighs a ton, but you feel all this electromagnetic energy coursing through you. So say you don't want to keep going through it, then you manage to pry your eyes open again. Abruptly, the movie stops, but they intensify the beaming into the part of the brain that induces sleep, and whammo, your eyelids close, and you're back in there. You're paralyzed, you're immobile, and you're back in the virtual environment. And that could happen all bloody night, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked sometimes, Jenny, and you know what I'm talking about, doing this kind of work. Sometimes just as in the case of a conference, the meetings after the meetings are the most interesting and thought-provoking with people, not just the lectures, but in these podcasts, in the intermissions, the kind of conversations we have, right? I mean, that are not even recorded, just fascinating and thought-provoking and enlightening. Well, we touched on some of these topics during the break, and the the training that sometimes that we're subjected to in a military, paramilitary, special ops sense, sometimes there's bleed over into our regular life where, this happened before when I've been with one or more other MILABs, and, we're at an establishment, a restaurant, and immediately we head for the table that gives us views of all the entrances and exits of the room or the restaurant we're in. We're automatically sizing up everyone who comes and goes, everyone who's in the restaurant, in the establishment, who would be a potential threat, what's this person all about? And it's all subconscious. We're sitting there, we're having a conversation with one another, but we're sizing up our surroundings, and we're tuning in operationally. And sometimes this bleed through is such that someone could be walking down an aisle in a supermarket, and for no reason at all, they feel like dropping down onto a knee, sighting down, cup and saucer, a pistol grip on some lady pushing a shopping trolley coming in your direction. You don't do it, but in your mind, you're dropping down to a knee, you're sighting down, right? Mm-hmm. Or you're running up and down the aisles of the supermarket in operational mode in your mind's eye, and you gotta kind of reel yourself back in. Oh, I'm not in that training. I'm here. I'm walking through Safeway or Lucky's or something. You know what I mean?
I really thought I was the only one. It happens to me constantly. I'm in a concealed carry state. Okay, Florida has fabulous gun laws.
That's great.
I leave my house. I am always thinking to myself, I for some reason, and maybe it's horrible, but I'm always thinking worst case scenario. I am always thinking
tactical,
kind of tactical. Everything in my life is about tactical. Having a higher ground, tactical, just constantly check your exits, check everybody, every face. I scan every face in any room. And sometimes, and this is horrible to admit, and I hope I don't regret this, but I will go over in my mind, to render everybody in the room ineffective by some kind of violent means in an effort to protect myself and my children and all innocent people involved. But I'll run through, okay, I can break that person's neck, use that person's broken arm to knock the other person out, and I'm just, I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm not encouraging violent thoughts, but that bleed through that you speak of,
yes,
I know exactly what you're talking about. And in some ways, I think that this is a way for us on a personal level to make the programming work to the advantage of ourselves and all innocent people. This is
absolutely
cool.
Absolutely,
and we have
I agree with you 100%.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because I think that it should be required reading. Everyone who's a MILAB to get the SAS survival book, and in that book is surviving in a desert environment, Arctic environment, a wooded environment, and then there's other books written by ex or current SAS instructors about operations, about firearms, whatever the case may be, or survival, right? So it's always a good thing to be able to, I don't like to use the term switch, let's just say, make the adjustment. If things go pear-shaped around you, you'll know what to do, and you won't be in a panic state, because they teach you in the Royal Marines, they teach you in other special units. You may not be able to control your surroundings. You may not be able to control the situation you find yourself in, but you can control your breathing. You can center yourself. You can make a determination, figure out exactly where you are, by looking up at the sky, the stars, and whatever, if you can see past the perma-chemtrail haze, right? So these are things that we can do to benefit us. If they're going to put us through this training, and remember, at some level, folks, we signed up for this gig. It's like, okay, what if I'm going to be here on planet Earth, and I'm going to be a systems buster, a paradigm buster, a frequency buster? I'm not going to put myself in a scenario where I have no influence whatsoever. I don't learn anything meaningful to help break this paradigm. You're going to go full tilt and say, you know what, if it takes being a MILAB and an alien abductee and occasionally being taken to these underground bases and worked over or whatever, right? If that's what it takes, then I'll do that.
We'll do it.
And then you make the best of the situation. Like my friend Lorena, I had her on my show. She started playing with paintball with a bunch of guys, and they treated her like a girl. Okay, just really take it easy, and You know, you don't just, you can hide behind things. And she goes, no, no, treat me just like yourselves, right? They have no idea she went through this military training, fast roping down helicopters, because she was a hardcore MILAB from like the 90s and the 80s, right? They had no idea that was in her background. She didn't share that. So later on, when they're out there in the desert, in Victorville area, playing paintball, she's like crawling around. She's got dirt and mud all over her face and in her hair, and she's zapping the hell out of these guys. And then they realize that when she plays for keeps. And she had that same mindset too, and a lot of us that have gone through the MILAB training too. And I hate to say it, folks, it makes it sound like we're violent people, but you would size people up. How would I take this big guy down? You know, I'd take out his kneecap, kick him in the groin, right? Gouge his eyes out. I mean, you think about these things, but you think about it in a survival mindset, because one of the key aspects, and I'm sure you went through this, Jenny, and others, you know, when they train us, is they train us to not only survive, but thrive in certain contingencies, certain operational scenarios on the surface. And it could be a nuclear, biological, chemical environment. It could be you know, foreign military occupation. It could be civil unrest, all these different scenarios. And we're put through our paces in this training, and we're graded. I mean, there are instructors there at times telling you after a particular training evolution, you didn't do this right. You got to, what you should do next time, we'll put you through it again. Do it differently next time. Think your way through. Don't panic and do things in a rushed, feverish state of mind, right? They want you, at least when you're in that, excuse me, operator mode, to be able to think with clarity and reason your way through things at a very high rate of speed. So we can all use that to our advantage. And I've gone through training scenarios where one of them, and it's common, I've heard this from other MILABs, I'd be in a war-torn city, and I'm being pursued, and I have to evade my pursuers. Similar in a way to the escape and evasion survival training that a lot of the units go through on regular military surface operation training. It was a similar thing where this aggressor force was chasing me through this war-torn city. I had to run through this warren of shattered buildings, holes in the wall. I'd leave one building through a hole in the wall and then enter another building through a hole in the wall. There's rubble in the streets. There's black helicopters flying around in the skies, right? So those kinds of scenarios. And another scenario, when they were demonizing and vilifying the Serbs, in this scenario, I was with two other MILAB friends, one of whom has since passed away, Donna Hendershot, wonderful woman. And the other is a dear friend of mine, well known in the field, doing our work, Jenny. And Donna, myself, and my friend were running up a hill. This was in the Apple Valley, Victorville area. It's a real place, but I guess what they've done, they may have mapped it all out in a virtual reality environment sense. Now, what Lorena told me when she'd gone through experiences there in that same boulder-strewn area up this hill, she said, no, when I was there, it was physical. I was touching the rocks. So, you know, whether what I'm going to describe now was physical, it was a theater of the mind, I don't know, but it was based on a real place. That's not too far from this underground base in a mountain. And Donna, myself, and my friend, we were fleeing these Serbs dressed in woodland camo fatigues and with black ski masks, and they were armed with high-powered rifles, right? And we're fleeing. We're hiding from boulder to boulder, and we clear the boulders, and we're going higher up the mountain, and we're in an open stretch of ground. And my friend, not Donna, but my other friend, I looked over to my left, and she was running alongside me, and I saw her head blown up, basically, with a rifle round. She falls down. I look down. I am absolutely distraught. And my friend Donna was absolutely distraught. And then I looked down. There was no hope for our friend. She was a goner. And those Serbs were coming up the hill. They're still shooting at us. So I grabbed my friend, and I dragged her up the hill and got behind some boulders. And I can't remember how the scenario played itself out. But I remember at the time pulling my friend up that hill, seeking cover. I was just so miserable, and I was just praying that this is just a virtual scenario. This is not real. But the thing about it, and you understand what I'm saying, Jenny, is we don't have the luxury, folks. We're in the midst of these trainings, these military type training, or operations, or actual what seem to be real ops. We don't have the luxury of saying, oh, this is a virtual reality. I'm just laying in bed. None of this is really happening, and I'm going to wake up. No, that's an assumption. That's an assumption, because these people, they use and discard people's lives like nobody's business. We all know, those of us who have been in this field for a long time, we all know people, MILABs, project people, fellow project people, that didn't survive, that they died, that they came back from these training experiences and ops with very bad, severe injuries. I've known people who've broken legs and broken ankles in these ops, and they wake up in the morning, sure enough, they got a broken leg. And, you know, for all their spouse or all their family knows is, you know, she went to bed that night. She went to sleep. She wakes up with a broken leg. How does that happen? It's because they didn't even bother mending her. They just dumped her back in bed after they were through with her. That's the mindset of some of these controllers. Mm-hmm. They just have no respect. It's a complete impingement upon our personal dignity, our personal sovereignty. There's nothing glorious or glamorous of this. We make of it the best we can. If they're going to train us in this way, we're going to internalize it. We're going to integrate it from a heart-centered perspective, and we're going to use this training. We're going to use the survival training. Mm-hmm. And getting back to some of the scenarios, in some of the survival scenarios, and I used to be trained in group MILAB trainings with Lorena. I've had Craig Bowers on my show before. He and I were in a lot of training together, and others in the high desert of Southern California. Because the MILABs that they were plucking were from San Diego, from Los Angeles, were from Las Vegas, the high desert of Southern California. They were just plucking us from all different places and throwing us into these scenarios. And we were going through a period, Jenny, when it was almost nightly. We would go through weeks, with 3, 4, 5 times in a week. We'd be either in singles, pairs, or in group MILAB training. And it was a deep black element of the military. And in one scenario, they put us through this scenario, Craig and I, and it was horrifying, and both of us were really troubled by it, where we were in a bedroom, and there was a door, and there was an adjoining bedroom. And in the adjoining bedroom, clearly, we can hear a woman being assaulted and being tortured, and she was screaming, and it sounded so real. And Craig and I would look at each other. What should we do? What should we do? Meanwhile, the poor gal, or at least a simulation, I don't know. She's just screaming and screaming, and she was being tortured, and it was horrible. And me and him just looked at each other, and, you know, shamefully, I might add, we didn't do anything. We just let it happen. And we just kind of cowered in that adjoining room behind that door, and we didn't do anything about it. The next day, we called each other up, and we were really remorseful because we felt like cowards. We felt like we should have gone in there. We should have helped. Whoever the poor gal was, she didn't deserve whatever was happening to her. We could have done more. And what they do is they put us through these physical and also emotional, psychological scenarios because they want to test us under duress, test us in stressful, anxiety-ridden situations and see how we would react. In that situation, Craig and I, the way we graded ourselves, we should have done something. And we felt bad about that. Because again, we cannot assume that it was a virtual reality. We cannot assume that there was no woman being tortured and being assaulted in the next room. That's an assumption. We don't know that. Mm-hmm. And even though we may have come into physical harm ourselves or endangered ourselves, as men, we should have done something, right? And we felt bad about that afterwards. And, you know, I felt pretty shameful about it for a long time afterwards. And then there was another scenario with another MILAB friend of mine. She was very active on the internet in the old days. Her handle was Cassie. She called herself Cassie, and she's from Texas. This is right after 9/11, and there were, even with MILABs, not only just the general public, Jenny, but with MILABs, they're trying to get us into this anti-Arab, let's go to war against the Arabs kind of mindset post 9/11. And in this scenario, there was this gal Cassie and I were sent to what they would call a close target recce, like basically a recon mission, to scout out these Arab terrorists, and they looked the part, that were hiding in this house in the country, right? And they had weapons in there, all this other stuff. And she and I went to the trouble of infiltrating into the house. And what happened was, again, it was a scenario when there was a number of them. There was like 4 or 5 of them. They were all armed with automatic weapons and sidearms. And they were torturing somebody. either for information or for sadistic pleasure, whatever the case may be. And in that state of mind, because there is a militant aspect of me in these ops, in these alter personas, where I'm very can-do, I'm very militant, I'm very let's get the job done kind of thing. And I may have been in that state of mind, state of being at that time, in that particular scenario. And again, I don't know if it was training, I don't know if it was real, because they literally use MILABs in real world scenarios here on this planet, not just off world, but if there's things going on in the Balkans, things going on in the Middle East, they're going to utilize us, physically even. And in this scenario, they were working somebody over, and the part of me that was really militant and in operational mode, I wanted to go over there and just deal with them. We had no weapons. And what Cassie did was she threw her body over me, put her hand over my mouth, and she was laying on top of me, and I was just seething in a rage. It's like, you got to do something. I think this was after that woman, we went through that training, Craig and I, where the woman seemed to be getting tortured in the next room too. So I don't know if that played a role in me wanting to help this person who was being worked over. But Cassie telepathically told me, and she's, very gifted MILAB in her own right. She telepathically told me, we don't have a chance. They'll kill us. They've got weapons. We don't. We're here to watch and observe, right? I didn't like it, but I agreed with her, but I was still struggling at times with her holding me down, right? So those things happen. They put us in scenarios where there's also some psych profiling going on. Those males that already have a high degree of let's say, a high proportion of reptilian genetics, they already have, relatively speaking, a reduced frontal lobe capacity. They don't have the impulse control we do, right? And a lot of us have. And of course, even though they already have a reduced frontal lobe impulse control capacity, they're going to keep trying to erode what's left through the electromagnetic beaming, through the training and everything else. And so those people, it's relatively easy to get them to pull the trigger in some of these training scenarios. But others that are not so inclined, they will put them in a scenario where they're in a hide site, and it could be an urban area, it could be a school setting, whatever the case may be, and they will have the person looking through the sniper scope and looking at people, right? Children, adults, and the message is to shoot, pull the trigger. But sometimes MILABs will not. They just have this innate sense of right and wrong, and they will not do it. At least in that state of mind, at least in that altered persona or altered persona. And the controllers will jot this down. Okay, in that state of mind, with no external stresses, they're not being shot at, they're not being chased or hunted, they're in a hide site and they're observing people through a scope, they will not shoot even though given the mental suggestion to do so.
Right.
And they found this out in the surface world too. Kim Philby, the notorious MI6 mole, KGB mole, his controllers in Spain wanted him to assassinate Francisco Franco, right, in Spain during the Spanish Civil War. He couldn't do it. And his KGB controllers, I think they were called the OGPU back then, said, well, Kim, his forte, in so many words, is spying, deceit, treachery, betraying people so they get killed. But as far as pulling the trigger or stabbing somebody, not so good, right? So they take all this stuff into account in the MILAB training as well. This person may not be able to pull the trigger, if you will, in certain scenarios, but maybe in other scenarios, stressors applied, different kind of programming, different kind of alter pulled up, maybe they can. So they put us through our paces individually and emotionally in the group training. And another aspect, and while we still got time, I want to point out, and definitely, I'd love to come back again if that's Jenny, to elaborate on more of these themes, because you know how it is, it's just not enough time sometimes.
No, I know. There's so much to talk about with this stuff.
What they do sometimes, Jenny, actually quite often, is they will pair people up. In our scenario, it would be a male and a female. They're both MILABs. And because they have this bond, this connection, even a physical, sexual aspect to it. And these people could already be in committed relationships. They could already, they may live in widely separated geographical locales. Doesn't matter. They pluck them, in the middle of the night anyway and bring them together. And this could happen over a period of time. And just setting aside all the morality and all that, because in these scenarios, one really can't. We always will have within us this innate sense of right and wrong, working from a heart-centered perspective. But sometimes, and the ETs will do this to us too, they'll compel us to do things that we normally would not do in our normal state of consciousness. And that applies also to relationships, interactions with members of the opposite sex in some of these scenarios, right? So if they have pre-bonded, like the male and the female, and again, this pair could have a past life connection, multiple past life connections, that the controllers, the military aerospace controllers, are aware of because of their own interactions with ETs and interdimensionals, telling them, okay, these two, they've known each other in this life, that life, another life. They put them together. They already pre-bonded on a number of different levels, spiritually, energetically. And what they find is because they're so pre-bonded and maybe they've had sexual unions in some of these scenarios, they will take chances for each other. They will take risk for each other. They're operating on an intuitive telepathic level in these ops. Mm-hmm. And so they're operating as a single unit, even though there's the two of them. Mm-hmm. And even on the surface, in an operational sense, Jenny, you know this, women can get into places, women can do things operational that men cannot do because they're women, okay? Mm-hmm. Also, if they happen to be like on the attractive side, again, that's another level of operational capability that men simply don't have. And so in a MILAB sense, in real world ops in different parts of the world, or in America or in the UK, wherever they're being used, they will use the fact that she's a woman. She can get, through that checkpoint. She can get through that, secure area and working with the guy. So that happens too. And another time I come back, I can elaborate in some more of the other scenarios that myself and others have gone through and what I've learned from others who've gone through similar things. These podcasts, they go by so fast, Jenny, but definitely, you're definitely always welcome on my show, The Cosmic Switchboard. And thank you so much for having me come on. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Oh my gosh, the pleasure, the honor has been all mine. And you guys, I just want to let everybody know that there will be many more episodes like this. I plan on having Mr. James Bartley back on my channel as often as I possibly can. He has a work schedule. I have a work schedule as well. We both have families, but the importance of these conversations and to have them, with this layer of hope as opposed to this defeatist attitude and to kind of turn it all around. And it's not woe is me. It's more of an empowering thing. I think that this is one of the most important, if not the most important topic or subject matter that we could be discussing at this time on our planet, because it's, the alien reality and all of the elements surrounding it are going to be brought forward in some capacity. And there will come a time in the not so distant future, y'all, where the surface population is going to be, they're going to need some kind of assistance, okay? A lot of us that have been experiencing these things since childhood, a lot of people have told me, why do you think you're so special? Why do you think you're so important? And they try to dismiss it as, you just think you're special, you think you're important. Why would any entity, military or otherwise, take any interest in little old you? And it's like, well, when I find that out, I'll let you know. But, these conversations really help us to put it all together. And it's not about being better than anybody else. It's not about being more important, but it is what it is. And we'd be doing ourselves and the rest of humanity a massive disservice if we were to just dismiss it as being, self-centered or fantastical or making things up. Those days are over. We're talking about this. This is real. This does happen. Chances are, folks, you all, if you haven't experienced this yourself, somebody that has experienced this stuff firsthand. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today. Please look out for plenty of new content from me. Everybody, please go over to thecosmicswitchboard.com. It's a fantastic website, very easy to navigate, lots of information. Please subscribe to my guest's channel on YouTube. It is entitled James Bartley, nice and easy for you there. He has so many hard-hitting interviews. You really could just make a weekend of it and just push play and go down the playlist. And there's no end to how much we can learn. And James, thank you so much for this. I've learned so much. You've really helped me make sense of a lot of things that I personally struggle with, and it makes me feel so not alone and so heard and seen and understood, that just on a personal level, I'm just so grateful to know you. I'm so happy that we are friends. I consider you, I look forward to fostering a friendship with you and working together in the future. Folks, James Bartley is just a lovely, lovely person. My pleasure to have him. So thanks again, James.
Thank you. And the feeling is mutual, Jenny. And I'm looking forward to a long and fruitful friendship and collaboration with you. And my regards to your dear listeners out there.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. Until next time. See you later.